Would love to see your beautiful faces. Already see a couple.
Okay, you ready to roll, Lou?
Yeah. We're already rolling. Let's go. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Human Touch. I'm Lou Solomon, and together with a wonderful group of human beings, we run a communications company called Interact Studio. We're so happy you're here, those of you in the Zoom room, and also those of you watching the live stream on YouTube. Welcome, welcome. So happy to have you with us. We are waiting on our main guest, but in the meantime, I'd really like to introduce the host of our interview today, which is Tim Miner. You know, Tim is co-founder along with his partner, Matt Olin, of Charlotte is Creative. And if you don't know, Charlotte is Creative is a nonprofit that advocates for creatives of all shapes and sizes as entrepreneurs. And that's exactly what they are. And they pair them with businesses that in partnership can serve each other. And of course, creatives are what will attract great, unique growth to Charlotte. So they've been doing this 24/7 behind the scenes. You might know them from Creative Mornings fame, but actually that's only a small part of what they do. But at the same time, everybody's always interested in that. So Tim, I understand we've had a recent communication about a live Creative Mornings coming back to us.
Yeah, this is by the way, thanks for that really kind introduction, Lou. We got the message we've been waiting for 18 long months, which is that Creative Mornings is the office in Brooklyn is comfortable with reasonable accommodations and responsibility to having live meetings again. So Matt Olin, who's my creative partner, he's actually on the call. He's on the Zoom right now, but he's driving. We are in the process with our team of figuring out what a live Creative Mornings looks like. We've not missed a month. We've gone on Zoom and done 18 straight Zooms, which have been tremendous. But we're ready to hug people and high five and do coffee toasts and just have a little bit of spontaneity that only a live event, can offer you. So
yeah, we miss it too. We miss the live music. We're ready. Absolutely.
I think what we had lunch about a week and a half ago with a friend, and what is easy to miss, I guess, when when we're all busy and we're thinking, well, what's been lost with some live events. And, this guy was talking about just the ability to bump into random strangers or to make a friend in a line, grabbing a pastry, or that just randomly happen to sit next to in the audience. And in his case, this is a music producer. He has met other musicians to work with, graphic artists that he's ended up working with. And so we're ready to get back into that business of, everything we do is at Charlotte is Creative is about putting people in connection with one another. And generally our ultimate goal is to put creatives to work, and Creative Mornings is one of the ways that we do that in addition to our other programs.
Yeah. So, what is a recent project, Tim, that you're proud of, something that you are currently excited about? I know things are breaking out for Charlotte is Creative. What would you point us to?
I think what Monday night is probably our latest thing. We've with support from Wells Fargo, we have undertaken what's called the Creative Entrepreneur Initiative. So we're doing this in partnership with them, of thinking of creatives, individual gig creatives across the spectrum, as small businesses. And we've been students of grant culture for the last few years. And one thing we see is that oftentimes creatives will get money, but not the direction on how to spend it. And so if you don't have business training or project management training, you get through your grant cycle. Did you spend it as efficiently as you could have? Did you use it to the extent that you could have? And where do you get the next one, right? How do you keep funding yourself? So this program pairs a $4,000 grant for a 4-month project for 7 creatives. And then they also get to take 10 different project management courses, ranging from time management to PR to legal documents to budgeting. And then we're pairing them with a budgeting expert, a PR counsel, and a project management counsel for individual sessions, so that not only will they be more successful in their next endeavor and with the one we're paying them to do, but also that they're able to teach other people. And so that our goal is, and I think you'll hear some of this out of Tom in just a minute, is helping creatives sustain themselves and be understood internally and externally in Charlotte as really vital to not only quality of life, but also the business community here.
Oh, yeah. 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 Wonderful. And speaking of a Tom, he is here, our featured guest. Our featured guest is CEO and president of Blumenthal Performing Arts, Tom Gabbard, and we don't want to miss a minute of him. So Tim, take it away.
Well, as this is a real treat and an honor for me, and I want to give you everybody as much time with Tom as possible. But one thing to note about him is when you look at his official bio on the Blumenthal website, his bio as president and CEO, where he has served since 2003. The second line says the Blumenthal's 110 employees manage 6 theaters in Charlotte, hosting over 1,000 performances annually, as well as extensive education programs. What I think you'll find is essential to Tom is he sees the people behind the work. The fact that it mentions in his bio that the Blumenthal employs 110 people, I think you will find is essential to who he is. Tom is a member of the Board of Governors of the Broadway League. He serves on the executive and finance committees. He's been a voter on the Tony Award since '97. And he holds an MBA in arts management from Golden Gate University and a BA in music performance from Pepperdine. And he also attended law school there. So, he's no slacker. What for me, and I want to lead in quickly to him, but for many years, Tom Gabbard was a name to me. He was somebody that I knew was doing incredible work, but I hadn't had the good fortune to work with. And I thank you, Lou and Interact, for giving me a chance to share my experience with Tom. Is over the last few years, especially during COVID, I've gotten to know the individual, the man behind the name and the title. I knew he was a leader within the Blumenthal, which is one of Charlotte's jewels of the cultural community, but I've gotten to know how he leads in big ways, small ways, subtle ways, and overt ways in our creative culture here. I've learned that he is a man who sees the macro. So when he sees the impact of COVID, he knows what that could do to cultural arts across the country, but the micro. Every show that was canceled, he felt. He knew that people weren't working, that actors weren't working, stagecraft professionals weren't working, and that got to him. And I saw and was inspired by his very clear desire manifest through his staff to put people to work during COVID. And that's something that at Charlotte is Creative, we took as a mantra to match Tom, and at every corner try to put creatives to work in a difficult economy. And so now it's my pleasure to introduce you to the man behind the name, Tom Gabbard. How you doing, Tom?
Great. Wow, what an introduction. But let me just say the respect is so mutual with Tim and his work. They are doing such great things, and to partner with them on various projects has been a real honor for us.
All right, you're not supposed to get me choked up before I ask you questions, Tom. That's not fair. Well, let's jump in because time is short. Tell us a little bit about your early beginnings, because I've been fortunate to hear these stories. How did you find yourself on a path toward the creative arts, and then how did that lead towards arts administration?
Well, first of all, I was very, very lucky to be born into an environment that nurtured that. And I will always be grateful that I had a family, that I had a city, that I had teachers throughout my life that nurtured these things in me. And it, I think, points out the obligation that we all have to give back to nurture others. But I think I've always been wired to have a passion for the arts, and to try to be an instigator, somebody who would take some responsibility to make things happen. But I think I've always been drawn to understand that the arts really has a profound impact on people, and that frequently we don't realize the lifelong changes that are happening in people, and the nurturing that happens through even small experiences in the classroom, in schools, and certainly throughout the community.
Tim, we've lost you.
I was on mute. That's a party foul on Tim. I was saying, Tom, everything I see you do illuminates that you not only want people to be entertained or moved by what they see, but you want them to see the people, the mechanisms, and the potential of creativity, and particularly theater and performance, to move people's hearts and minds. And so that leads me to ask, you had a very successful career in the arts prior to coming to Charlotte, and coming here in 2003, it was a very different city than it is today. What did you see when you were originally offered the position at the Blumenthal, and what's kept you here? What's kept you working and saying no to other offers?
Well, Charlotte has been a great fit for my wife and I, and I will say, when I was first recruited for the job, I was reminded, my wife and I had been married for about 25 years then, and I'd said, we might have to move a few times for my work, and she said, I'll live any place but the South. And so when I got the call, I told Jim Hance, who was the board chair and back then vice chair of Bank of America, I told him that, and he laughed, and he said, yeah, I've heard that as Heimer too. Why don't you and Vicki come to Charlotte and just spend a long weekend? And we came back in 2002 and immediately fell in love, and realized then, even though it was a very different city, that this was an incredibly progressive place that was focused on making things happen for the community good. And that's exactly the culture that Vicki and I wanted to be a part of. And throughout now 18 years, it's just gotten better and better. And we are so proud to be a part of this city.
Well, following up on that, I know you could have come in and worked on macro projects only, which you did, but I know you had a passion early to bring in different kinds of art, art forms and disciplines, but also really drive exposure to cultural experiences across the community. Can you tell us a little bit about what your passion was there, and what some of the first moves you made to expand the notion of what the Blumenthal could be to Charlotte?
I mean, first of all, one of the early things we did that was structural, but I thought the symbolism was really important, was that we made Tryon Street our front door. When Blumenthal was designed, Caesar Pelli designed it so that you parked in this parking garage, went through this hermetically sealed skywalk, got your tickets in Founders Hall, and went into theaters, and never had to go outside. And I, at the outset, just said, maybe at one time that was necessary. I won't question Caesar's vision on this, But now we've got this vibrant downtown that can only get better. So we're going to make Tryon Street our front door and begin to try to connect ourselves. The other thing that I told the board early on that was a missing part of our program were small shows that played for an extended period of time, that we were adept at bringing in the one-nighters and the one-week Broadway shows, but there was a niche for smaller shows that could be that Energizer bunny. We are very mindful of the fact that restaurants and hotels around us rely on our activity. And, we're thankful for the big things like Rolling Stones next week that'll bring in people for a night. But it's important for us to deliver activity that makes these places sustainable. That's night after night after night. So we plunged in, doing things like Forever Plaid was our first produced production. It played for 10 weeks. And then Sheer Madness that went, I think, 220 performances. So that really began, kind of repositioning us from this roadhouse of blockbuster shows to begin to experimenting with things that were actually even more connected just by the fact that they were here a lot.
Tom, you led precisely into where I wanted to go next by illuminating what I said in my intro, that you see well beyond just how your actions or how the Blumenthal's actions affect the organization. And you look at how it affects businesses and individuals around you. And so that leads me to talk about something that I know you have a great passion for, which is social entrepreneurship, right? And how it's found its way into not only your life, but into your organization's practices. That was something that you've been, doing for a while, but in COVID, it really took flight. And so I'm going to ask if you would share, what does social entrepreneurship mean to you? And then how do we see it in some of the recent work Blumenthal Performing Arts has done and some of your recent hires? Because I think they really manifest that goal for you.
They do. And I feel like we have a convergence now of things that in many respects makes our work here at Blumenthal even more important, because we have always been an entrepreneurial organization. We have always been focused on trying to create community good. But I think that focus on both has actually been made even greater the last few years, and particularly during COVID, that we're not unwilling to evaluate business opportunities and frankly make money when we can make money, so that we can turn around and invest it in the community. And so we had a grant evaluator a few years ago from the North Carolina State Arts Council, whose comment was, "What I love about this organization is that it thinks like a nonprofit, but it acts like a for-profit." And he said that as a compliment, that we bring the entrepreneurial skills and frankly a very strong commitment to good business practices, good marketing, all those things, but all with the goal of making the community stronger and doing good in the community. So a good example that's right in front of us now that has been just an unbelievable success has been Immersive Van Gogh. That's especially in COVID, was an incredibly ambitious thing for us to take on. And when our Canadian partner who created the production, when he first called me in July of 2020 to talk to me about the success, interestingly, as he called all of my peers across the country, not a single person would even return his call, let alone talk to him, because everybody was scared to death, and rightfully so. If you ran a big performing arts center, then the dominant strategy was just lay everybody off, go into hibernation, and when it's safe to come out, you rehire. And we honestly tried to avoid that tact and to look at opportunities that would help us to reactivate and with the top goal of putting people back to work. And so Immersive Van Gogh was one of those projects that we found had some potential. We couldn't get a hold of any shows, nobody was touring, be it be it theater or concerts. Nobody was touring. So we needed to look at some alternatives. So when I went to the board about this project in December and January, a little bit of February, we were right at the height of the pandemic, right? And Blumenthal for a period of time was incurring substantial losses because we hadn't laid everybody off. So we still had a fairly high payroll because we were trying to hold on to people. So even after all those losses, I went to the board and said, this looks really interesting. It's going to be a few million risk, but I think it could work. But most of all, it's going to get people back to work. And that was our top 3 goals, were to get people back to work. Number 2, to begin to reactivate audiences. And 3rd, to manage the risk so that we at least broke even. But the jobs piece was really front and center. And I'm just so thankful that our board had the courage in the midst of the pandemic to say, not only we're going to do it, but we understand there's some financial risk that goes along with it. And so, from that, over 200 people were hired. Our IA stagehands had a call that went a month long to install all of the digital equipment. So a lot of jobs were created. I will say in the process too, we had an opportunity to create a more diverse staff, because our goal coming out of the pandemic was to create more diversity in our team, and that created an opportunity with new hiring to be able to do that. So now here we are at about 240,000 people that have been through to see Immersive Van Gogh. We are going to close at the end of October because frankly, we love doing what we want to do. The Ford building was a great choice for this, but we want to find another place where it's not an older building quite like that, that has a little more infrastructure to it. We've had to bring in all of the infrastructure. But again, I think it's an example of a nonprofit that was willing to lean in, take some financial risk, realize that as a business decision, it was a challenging business decision. We did the whole thing in 4 months, from saying yes to opening the doors, building it all out, marketing it, and everything. So, but we leaned into it, knowing that it was our best hope that we could find to get people back to work.
It's truly remarkable, and for those that are on the Zoom, and it's unlikely given the numbers of people that have been to Virtual Van Gogh, but if you haven't been, it's at Camp North End. It had the Immersive Van Gogh experience itself is remarkable and unlike anything you've ever experienced. But also those, you were saying, Tom, your desire to treat your nonprofit like a for-profit in many ways and embrace entrepreneurship has found its way into what's on the outer parts of, what surrounds Immersive Van Gogh with your artist residency programs and all of that. Could you speak just for a minute? Because I've got 2 more questions about what went into that.
Yeah, because in fact, that is one of the things we're most proud of, is what surrounds the exhibit itself and the way that it's utilized local artists in this. And I will say it's totally unique to Charlotte. So this particular Immersive Van Gogh is slated to open in 20 American cities, and probably more than that. We're the only city that developed this local artist component and made the investment in the surrounding space, because I took the position that, look, I want the outside that surrounds it to be just as good as the inside. So let's really lean into this. So we've had, first of all, Bree Stallings came onto our staff and did just an incredible job of designing everything that surrounds it. So if you go there and you see the tapestries and other things, that's all Bree Stallings, a huge mural that she painted on a wall it was a wall that was all chewed up. We had to do something about it because it had huge holes in it. And Bree created this incredible mural. But we have 3 artists in residence. Other cities they are able to get one artist usually. Sometimes they even have a stretch coming up with one artist. But these artists are paid. We pay them, I think it's $800 a week to show up for 40 hours a week. Plus, then they actually can sell. So in addition to what we pay them, they also have an opportunity to sell. We've had artists, it was a big effort to animate even the outside. So if you go, you'll see 14 picnic tables that have been painted a la Van Gogh. We paid local artists to do that. And that's part of a program afterwards. When we're finished, we're actually going to gift those into the community, into neighborhoods that are art deserts, to bring some art there. But beyond that, we have artists that made things that are being sold in merch, and we've got about an 8,000 square foot merch area. And many of the things you'll see there are actually created by local artists. As I said, the show is going to be in about 20 other cities. Now those artists' work is being purchased to be used in those other cities. So I think some of our artists are like, how do I deal with all this demand? I've got all these orders. How do I deal with it? Which is a nice problem to have. And we've offered, to help them with money if they need help with cash flow and those kinds of things. But even after the show closes here, because of all these other cities that ramp up after us, there will be a residual benefit to all these artists. And it's significant. Our first month, I think the royalty check or the percentage that went to those local artists just for merch was over $60,000 just for that single month.
That's incredible. And that, I think it's a great example of you putting, showing how art and culture and art institutions can think beyond their own walls and make it work for the entire community. If it's okay with you, Tom, we're going to go to 11:35 because I've got just a few more questions for you. One is, you took a huge risk on Van Gogh because you're right, at a point where conventional wisdom was lay people off or focus on our bread and butter, you did something that even in a good year, without COVID, would be challenging. Did that risk pay off? Did you find new audiences, people that maybe you weren't accustomed to coming to Blumenthal performances prior?
It has paid off, and I'll explain. I do want to back up to give some credit to our federal government that created a program called Shuttered Venue Operating Grant. And that money is available, and our friends at the Neighborhood Theater and Evening Muse were very much the forefront of getting Congress to approve that. That money, in part, was to encourage people to actually create new things, to help restart. It wasn't just patching the holes of the losses they took, but to incentivize. And so that was part of my conversation with our board. And I just said, look, if I've really misjudged this, and we lose a few million on this, Shuttered Venue is our backstop. And Congress approved this money to incentivize us to get in the game and not sit on the sidelines. So but going to expanding the audience, this is one of the fascinating things, is that of those nearly 240,000 people that have been through, over 80% are what we call new to file. People who have not bought a ticket from Blumenthal before, which is pretty incredible because we have this big database that not only covers Blumenthal shows, but we sell tickets for Neighborhood Theater, the Visualites, all sorts of folks, Theater Charlotte. So we have a really diverse database. And even with that in mind, over 80% of the folks coming are new. So fingers crossed, we can continue to build that relationship, that this is just the entry point. And also, I think, important for us to acknowledge that in spite of the big names and things that we had, they hadn't bought a ticket before. It took something different. And so our experimenting to find what the next different things are is important to keep those people energized.
I mean, to have done that at such a difficult time is absolutely remarkable. And I know that also you had a just going to Immersive Van Gogh, the audience is so diverse. And it's such an accessible thing, especially with the outer exhibit, being free to the public. So just an amazing effort. That said, back to more traditional forms of theater, because this last few weeks has been significant. I know you to be somebody that despises quiet, dark, unused stages, even in the best of markets. So you've had a quiet year. What was it like for Wicked, which is open through October the 3rd? What was it like to open Wicked at Ovens earlier this month and welcome Broadway back to Charlotte?
Well, we're having a great experience. It's the culmination of a year and a half of very hard work. So let me say, it wasn't a quiet year in terms of the Zoom and all of that. I'm part of a brain trust group with the Broadway League that leaned in to figure out how we reactivated not just Broadway but tours. There actually, I'll just share with you confidentially, there was a time where we were actually going to have Wicked here as kind of a bubble project with like the NBA did. That's how far in the weeds we were to try to figure out the health protocols and things necessary to restart these shows. Zooming with people all over the world. I was part of a COVID theater think tank group and actually chaired the committee on rapid testing, which when I first started talking about rapid testing in June of 2020 and strategies that would put rapid testing as a part of our protocols backstage, everybody was like, rapid what? And now I'll tell you backstage that actually now is becoming the dominant strategy, is that we're testing everybody every day or two. So it's, the energy in the room, those audiences that are so glad to be back is just beyond belief. I have to discipline myself to not be there every day because people are so glad to be back. And the respect of the rules. Masking is really an integral part of this. And we learned that from the Koreans back when I led a group from the Broadway League of about 90 that took a deep dive into Korean theater, where big shows had played through the pandemic. And I learned back in May 2020 that they were able to do that because of universal masking. Mm-hmm. And we said, look, great strategy for them. Americans will never do it. And back then, Americans wouldn't do it. I will say now, at least theater goers, they are really respectful. We have not had a single case with Wicked or Charlotte Squawks of people resisting that. And even in Immersive Van Gogh, we've adopted that strategy. We've had one resistor, and we could have probably picked him out. His T-shirt said "Psych Ward" on it.
Yeah, that one probably you could have seen coming.
So people are glad to be back, and they understand now that it was taken away that it is a privilege. It's a privilege to be together to enjoy these shows. And so I think people walk into that theater and respect the rules, acknowledging that it's a privilege we don't want to see taken away.
Well, privilege is a great word to end on. It's been a privilege to lead this conversation with you and have a chance to share you with this audience and how you think. Tom, you are an incredible leader, and someone who not only sees the big picture but loves the people that are part of it. Thank you for everything that you do for Charlotte. I wish we could keep talking, but it's 11:35 and time to turn it back over to Lou. So thank you for coming today.
Thank you, Tim.
Oh my gosh. Tom Gabbard, we are so blessed by you and your team and your vision for 18 years. And I don't think people by and large understand the reach and the impact on so many different levels of Blumenthal Performing Arts. And similarly, Tim, you and Matt are in a like-minded side of the world with Tom, and we're just so grateful for all three of you and the people that work with you all the time. It's been our deep pleasure. Next up on October 7th, we have Varian Schrum, who is the manager of Camp North End's community, and will tell us a little bit about how that came to be. If you have not been lately, it is happening. So once again, Tom, Tim, I know Matt is driving. Thank you so much for being with us. And for all of you, thank you for coming today and staying a little extra so that we could get more Tom. Take care.
Thank you, Lou.
Yes. Bye.
Thank you, Lou.
Yes. Bye now. Have a great day.
I see the Honorable Porter Metzler up there in the
Yes.
gaggle.
And
I got to see the
Joni.
last